Hello, Phyllis Roman from Giamanco Law Partners here to talk to you today about the difference between personal injury and workers' comp, at least for Illinois. If you have questions regarding your own state, I would highly recommend contacting an attorney there, although some of the issues that you're going to hear today in this video will apply broadly. So first things first, what is work comp? That is an injury, workers' compensation injury. This is an injury that you have while you are working. This is something that occurs either as a result of negligence or just that something happened, an accident just happens. You know, you're lifting a metal plate, it drops and it crushes your finger. Not something necessarily that the employer did that was negligent, but an injury that occurs while you are working. Personal injury is something that would happen while you're not working. Car accidents, as long as you don't drive for a living, slip and falls, more traditional personal injury cases that you are familiar with. Workers' compensation is a compromise system. This means that a worker does not have to prove that the employer was negligent or did something wrong or failed to do something they should have been doing, failed to take some sort of safety step they should have been doing. But since they don't have to prove this wrongdoing or omission on the part of the employer, they also do not recover generally, mostly, as much as you would in a personal injury. Personal injury action, you have to prove that someone did something quote unquote wrong. They were negligent, they did something wrong, or they failed to do something that they should have done. So in that respect, you have to prove additional things for personal injury action that you do not in work comp. Because you don't have to prove that the employer was at fault in a work comp, the employer in turn does not have to pay as much out as they would in a personal injury action. If I was injured at your work, walking into your work on faulty stairs, I'm going to likely recover more than an injured employee would. Because of that compromise system in workers' compensation. Now, unfortunately, even if the employer did do something wrong, there is some sort of negligence or omission or at fault action or inaction by the employer, you still are likely going to be under the workers' compensation compromise system, so you're not going to recover as much as you would in a personal injury action. Let me kind of break that down a little bit for you. In personal injury and in work comp, there's a list of things that you can recover, or generally can recover if you can prove it. In a personal injury action, you have lost wages. If you are off work as a result of the injury, let's call it just a general car crash that happens, someone rear ends you and pushes you into oncoming traffic and you get hit. You end up with a fractured femur. You're no longer able to do whatever your job happens to be, if you're a machinist or something of that nature. In a personal injury action, you would get all of your lost wages, 100%. So if you were an hourly worker making $45 an hour as a machinist, then you would just extrapolate that out to however many days off of work, and there you go. If you're off one day, you get 45 times 8 for your 8-hour day, whatever it happens to be. Under a work comp compromise system, you do not get 100% of your wages. Your employer is paying you when you are off work as a result of that injury, but they're only paying you a percentage of your lost wages. This is called temporary total disability because you're temporarily totally disabled. You're going to be back to work at some point after you finish your medical treatment, but at the initial time of the injury, you cannot work. As a result of that, you are getting some quote-unquote lost wages. It's called temporary total disability benefits, but it's just a percentage of your wages, not the full amount. That's one of the differences between and why personal injury is getting paid out more than a work comp is. A second thing is medical bills. Under personal injury action, you're going to be asking for all of your medical bills. Whether they're paid by the insurance, not paid by the insurance, are subject to a reduction because of the insurance, whatever it happens to be. When you are injured with that fractured femur, you get, all of the medical bills that come from that injury if it was the result of someone's fault. In work comp, you are also entitled to all of your medical bills. However, it's not 100% of the medical bills. At least in Illinois, there is something called the fee schedule. They basically, every single medical procedure, a medical appointment, subset within a medical appointment, everything is subject to a fee schedule where the legislature and courts and arbitrators have basically laid out a system where a physical therapy appointment is worth this amount of money, a surgery is worth this amount of money, this prescription is worth this amount of money, and it's a contracted rate under the work comp system. So again, you're getting your medical bills covered, but at a smaller rate, showing again how personal injury can end up paying out significantly more than a work comp injury. But again, work comp, you don't have to prove fault on anyone. The last is the big one. This is the one where people really have difficulty understanding or view it as unfair to the person who was injured. In a personal injury action, back to that car accident, if you have a fractured femur, and let's say the fracture actually comes through and your leg and you end up having to have surgery and you have a scar on that leg. In a personal injury action, you can recover the pain and suffering, from the surgery, from the months of physical therapy, and however long you have pain as a result of that injury, likely 6 to 8 months. You can recover pain and suffering from that. You can recover loss of normal life. This is outside of lost wages. It's, you can no longer work out, you can no longer drive, you can't mow the lawn, whatever it happens to be, your loss of your daily activities. You go through your daily activities and say, before the crash I could do this, after the crash I can't. All of that follows in under loss of normal life. You also can recover for any scarring on your leg and the disfigurement essentially that occurred as a result of the car crash. You can get all three of those things under personal injury, and they all have their own amounts of money. An amount of money for pain and suffering, an amount of money for loss of normal life, an amount of money for scarring, disfigurement from the surgery, and if you did fracture a femur, from the bone poking out. Under work comp, again, this compromise system where you don't have to prove fault and you only have to basically show that you were injured while working and that the injury occurred as a result at work, not from some prior existing injury that you had. Under work comp, you don't get pain and suffering. You don't get loss of normal life. You sort of get scarring. What it's called is permanency. So if your leg was 100% prior to this fracture, then after this fracture as a result of the surgery, and you're never 100% again. Your leg is never going to be back to where it was pre-injury. It's always going to have weakness, maybe have some pain, loss of range of motion, loss of muscle tone, whatever it happens to be. Your physicians, your physical therapists will go through and say, okay, after we've done all the treatment, all the physical therapy, when we've reached the end of your treatment, this is the reduction in the use of your leg. So your leg was at 100% before, and now it's at 80%. Now it's at 70%. Whatever amount it is at, that's the recovery you get, that reduction in percentage. It's not for the course of your injury, all of the pain and suffering, loss of normal life that you went through. It is only for the reduction in your leg after you've completed treatment. Every body part has a certain number of weeks assigned to it, has a certain value assigned to it, and then you contract that value based on, if you completely lost your leg, it would be 100% of that value. Because your physical therapist, your doctors, whoever it is saying, okay, after all the physical therapy, after the surgery, we're now releasing him, he's done treating, but you have a 20% loss of use of that leg, you get that recovery for 20%. Now you can see how that is going to be drastically less than recovering for pain and suffering, 8 months of pain and suffering, 8 months of loss of normal life, scarring, all of that. That just adds up and builds, whereas work comp does not consider all of that you went through. It only considers the period of time when you're done. The period of time from before, how you appear, 100% before, and then versus your percentage now. So it's a much smaller amount. But again, it goes to a compromised system. It's supposed to be quicker, faster, and less difficult for an injured employee to recover so they can get back to work. It's not supposed to be a quote, a punishment for something that the employer did. It's just supposed to help the employee get back on their feet and realize that they had this injury at work, so there should be a reduction and should be some recovery from that reduction, but it's not going to be the amounts that you see in a personal injury action in general. It's just a different system, and I find that a lot of clients have difficulty understanding that and difficulty seeing how that is fair to the person who was injured. That's the system that we have, and that's the system that myself or other attorneys have to work through. If you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to call an attorney in your area, call our office. I'm happy to walk through the differences between a work comp injury and a personal injury action and see which one you fall under. There's also a lot of considerations as to if you're under personal injury or you're under work comp or both. It's possible to be under both. And these are the types of things that an attorney can help you through. I hope that this video was educational and informational. If you have any questions, give us a call at Geomanco Law Partners. We're happy to help you out. And as always, good luck out there.